Oh my gosh, this is so stinking cute. I'm gonna give you a little spin so you can see all sides here of how amazing this looks. Welcome to making the super adorable puffed granny square beanie or cap tutorial. Hi Frances. This is my cat, Francis. If we haven't met before, my name is Leigh. So nice to meet you. Well, I really love this project because it was like one of those things that I designed on a whim and then was like, this is so good. So I'm really excited to share this with you. This video accompanies the pattern. So thank you so much for purchasing that and supporting my ability to continue to design fun things like this. We are gonna walk through how to put together this pattern because I know a lot of people would rather watch a video than follow written instructions. We're gonna do this whole thing together. So I recommend for this pattern that you pick 3 different colors because it does create this really cool little spiral effect. You can of course do something that's super colorful like this. I love this one, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm gonna assume that you have 3 different colors that you've worked with. So if you're doing the cap, you should have 2 puffed granny squares in each color, and then you should have 3 of these half grannies. And if you are making the full-size beanie, you should have 3 of each color of the granny squares, and again, just 3 of the partial grannies. You're gonna start with your 3 colored squares in kind of a little triangular odd shape here. This first round of a join, we're gonna connect one side to the other side of all 3 of our colors. I'm gonna start with doing a border stitch along the top of the first one. That's just going to be a single crochet. So you should have 3 stitches you can go into for each puff stitch. There's 1, 2, 3, all the way across. And then you're gonna do 1 into that corner. Now I'm ready to add my second piece. This yarn has like a slight pink hue to it. I don't have tons of that ball left, so we'll see. Okay, now you're gonna join on the second bit here. I'm gonna have them facing each other, and now I'm gonna go through and in that border and in this side, I'm gonna do just a slip stitch. So one time in the corner, I'm gonna grab that first one and do a slip stitch. Then on the top of that puff stitch, I'm gonna find that single crochet and we're gonna do slip stitch. And we're gonna go all the way across there. Okay, last one. What the back side looks like. And then I'm just gonna close it chain of 1 so that this isn't just kind of hanging out there wide. You can see from the front, that's what it looks like. It should be a pretty tight little join that's about the same size on either side. And then you can kind of pick which side you're gonna go down next. I'm just gonna go for this one and do the same thing. I do my first single crochet in that space and then into the tops of the puffs here. And keep single crocheting along the top all the way across. Now we're gonna add our 3rd color and we're gonna do the slip stitch. From this side, I'm going in under each of the single crochets, finding where I would have done a single crochet on the other side, so you should still have 3 stitches across, and doing a slip stitch. A handy tip that I'll use actually when I'm doing this is I'll take one of my hands that's holding it and line up the puffs and just kind of stick my finger in a puff. It helps me make sure that I'm keeping it lined up. I mean, you could obviously do stitch markers, but the puffs are just such nice little grippy bits that work the same way. Okay, so we've made it back to that center. It looks really good. Again, we have the slip stitches through the back here, and then we're going to join this last side. You see it does kind of raise up a little bit, which is where we start to get the tip of our hat, but not too pointy because nobody likes like a too pointy hat. On the last stitch here, I'm just gonna do a slip stitch across to the royal blue there so that I make sure that that corner is really nice and tight. And then we're gonna start doing our single crochets this way. Oh, almost went the wrong one. I guess I need to get more interesting at like crocheting and telling stories at the same time. We have made it to the other side with all of our single crochets, and now it's time to do that slip stitch into this 3rd side here. So let me just chain 1 to get kind of above that stitch. We're now going back into the center and that's where it's gonna end. I chose this really lovely 3-5 ply cotton for this because the colors are just amazing. Well, I mean, the origin story is that I was making way too many granny squares and there's like, what do I do with them? Rot grannying. And so this one is actually all that 100% cotton. I was surprised by how incredibly comfy it was on, how cozy it is to wear. I do think the puff granny squares make it look even better. They've made it all the way across, chain 1, and then where is my, I'll just break it for now. Okay, and so here we are fully joined. And when I look at it from the other side, this really mild little point. So it should kind of sit like this, but if you put it on your head, it should look like you're wearing something interesting there. We're gonna do our border all the way around this, so that will allow us to do like a little join as you go type of thing where we only have to like do each pass once, which will be really nice. I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in that empty corner space. I'm gonna do a slip stitch into this big chunky bit back here. So I'm gonna do 1 slip stitch into there, and then I'm gonna do my single crochet starting on the other side. And what that did is it made sure there weren't any gaps, but without adding any extra stitches. So we're going all the way around. You get 2 on that point there. That should feel familiar from your half grannies. You need to learn how to do a better like holding this while filming type of crochet hold, because I feel like this is not how I naturally do it, and so it makes me a little bit slower. Not that I was ever that fast at this in the first place. Designing, yes. Actual crochet stitches, not so much. But I'm always shocked when I see people that are just like ninja-ing through things. So I've reached another side here. I'm just gonna do a little slip and then start single crochet in the next color. I just want to know, like, what do you usually watch / listen to when you're crocheting? Let me know in the comments. For me, it's like if I'm designing something, it's very hard for me to focus on something else. But I think that's why I really love doing the Rot Granny Squares. We now have this lovely single crochet border around our entire little triangle. So now we want to take our next granny squares and lay them out upside down, and we're going to join them upside down because become the bill, the cuff, I'm like forgetting the word for it at the moment. They're going to become the edge. So we want to lay them out, and then instead of how we usually do of like right sides together to join, in this case, since we want it to be upside down, but we still want the join to be on this top side here, I'm going to lay it like here's the top and then here's the bottom. I'm going to lay it on top like this. And then we're gonna start joining with our slip stitch. I'm gonna join this to one side of the green and then one side of another color using that exact same slip stitch join that we have just been doing. This is the right side and then this is upside down, but then the stitch, the joining is still in the back here. So I'm gonna keep going. And you could use stitch markers here, but one thing I like to do is I just find the holes between the puffs and then just hold them with my fingers a bit as I'm going, because then you know that your stuff's evenly lined up and it helps you just keep a good hold on what you're doing. Stitch markers definitely are not a bad thing either. Love a good stitch marker. You definitely find out how even your stitches were when you're joining stuff together. So you only want to join two sides together of these new granny squares that you just added. So once I get to the corner here, I'm going to chain one. So in theory, we would have started this one in the corner, but that's fine. Now I will need to change my colors. You want every color to touch fully on one side, one color, and then the color next to it. So next I'm gonna do the navy so that it fully touches one side here and then touches part of the royal blue. And then I'm just gonna join the royal blue against the royal blue and then over here on this mint green color. Lost focus there for a sec. Now that I've done my upside down mint green to here, I'm gonna do my upside down navy blue. I'm gonna go into this corner, grab my navy blue, which looks like it's sitting in a stack now to have it be facing the right way. So it's just more comfortable for me to do. and do it this way. Join two sides of the navy blue. Make sure everything's lined up. What you're gonna start to see is like what could potentially feel like the point of your hat someplace else, even though it is not. So that can get a little confusing. We now have this navy side to the navy, and then the navy now needs to be joined to the royal blue. Find my puffs to help guide me here. And since the geometry is kind of like so specific on this hat, we will do a different join on the last round. So that's one of the reasons too why I'm like, watch this and like pay attention to how the things are joined rather than just kind of like speed through, because in my testing what I found is that if you don't add a little bit more space in the last round, just by the nature of it folding and having another layer underneath, it can be a little bit too tight around the brim of the hat. It will sit better. We're not quite there yet. I'm almost to the edge of the join of this navy blue piece. Well, it's not really a navy, it's actually a midnight blue, supposedly. So we've gotten that, but you see what I mean when I'm like, where is the top of our hat? It's really here. No, it's not. See, that's the thing, it's not, it's here. Oh my gosh, this is where, yeah. So here's the top of our hat, and now we have these two little bits added. So yeah, maybe put a stitch marker in the center, but you can't kind of tell because these two are upside down now. So I've joined two sides, and so now I need to join a blue to the blue and then a blue to the other open side of this, and then close this one, and then we'll have finished that round. And if you get confused, remember that you are joining the upside down ones to whatever has the single crochet border. So that's a good way when you're like, where is my center? These ones without anything on the edge are your new ones. So again, I want it to be sitting on top. I'm going to hop into this corner here, slip stitch there. It is about to be beanie weather here, like very cold, and I am so happy. As a short-haired person, it's not just about like the warmth, it's hat season just makes my life a lot easier. Usually a bad hair day means my hair is literally sticking up. We call them hair boners. Like, I don't have a better way to explain it. Yeah, so I basically try to, like, when you have a bad hair day, when your hair is sticking up, when you want like 2-day hair or something, or 3-day hair, it's a lot harder when you have short hair, because some days you slept funny and there is no coming back from that. If you have longer hair, you can like put it in a ponytail, you can do more with it usually. I try to not let my hair get too short nowadays, so I can at least like maybe French braid it to try to save it. Okay, so we've now reached one side of the lovely like royal cobalty blue. I know I'm not joining these two sides because see, neither of them have a single crochet, so I know it's not these that are getting joined, but this one is now touching one that does have a single crochet, so that's how I know they go together. Just keep slip stitching across. But yeah, so like beanies are basically saving grace for short-haired people because it's like a hat that nobody really questions. I do have a lot of like Baker Boys hats and things that I'll wear, but people are always like, oh, it's so fashion when you're wearing a hat, right? But when you're wearing a beanie, no one's like, oh, you're so like avant-garde. Not that I care if I am or not, but it's just like they're cozy, they're functional, they keep you warm, and they look cute. And then if you have short hair, it's like no one knows what kind of hair day you're having. You could have a really, really bad one and it would just be a mystery. Getting to the corner. I'm finishing with this cobalt one. I'm just gonna do that chain of one that I keep doing before I hop into the next one. Since I didn't start in the corner, the pattern says start in a corner. We just have this one last side here to fill out. I know that this isn't a race. If you're doing this with me, I wanna know like what your crochet speed is. Are you at 2x, 3x, 4x my speed? Like, are you at half speed? I mean, that's cool too. Okay. So we have made it all the way around. Yay! You're gonna have to have an end there. Sorry about that. It looks like we have made like a Rubik's Cube. If you close this, what would this be? If you wanted to dice, you could do that, but we aren't. We're doing a hat. If I turn this right side out with all the seams on the inside and pop it on. I'm ready for my medieval whatever, but this should feel really good at this point. If for some reason you're like, I don't know, it feels a little bit snug, one thing that you could do to modify it is do a single crochet on either side of these and then slip stitch join, and that's actually what we're going to do on the next step, so I'll show you that in just a moment. But fold these up and then just see like how does that feel. So again, this is the cap version. What does this remind me of? It reminds me of Fargo shearling caps, but we're not stopping here. Now you're not going to see this lay flat at all. Now it's really going to want to fold in half more and sit like this. And again, you should see your last round, these little bits should be sticking up versus they aren't on this. So it should look like you put it in upside down. We're gonna do one more round of single crochets along all of the edges here. So this time I'm gonna not be silly and I'm actually going to start in a corner. In exactly the same way, you should get 3 single crochets per puff. And since I am quite positive that you're probably a little bit sick of hearing me, we'll just meet back here in just a minute. I'm trying to see if I can go any faster here. If I stop talking, probably not. Okay, so you should now have a border around all of these sides here of a single crochet at the bottom. Now we're going to be adding our half grannies. Well, first we want to lay them out that when you fold up these panels, you get one colored square in between, and you'll want to line up this colored square with that one. So you want to join them with this raw side up. You're going to fold it over. We now want our seams to be on the other side. So you're starting at like basically the point, and then I'm just going to go through here and start my single crochets all the way down one side, and it's going to be the point side. And it's going to feel a little bit odd because this has like one little string hanging there connecting it, but that is actually very intentional. And as we get to the corner here, I now have a line of single crochets to line up to this single crochet. So it should look like you're doing the wrong thing compared to the row before it, but it's really doing the right thing. So I'm gonna do my chain of 1. Now we're slip stitching through 1, 2 single crochets. I think I started this in a direction that's weird for me. Let me turn it around. I'm gonna start slip stitching through the tops of these single crochets, back loop only. And instead of doing a slip stitch through both sides, we're gonna grab only these outside loops as we're slip stitching across. By not grabbing the entire single crochet, we're actually creating a really nice presentation on the front. And I'm just grabbing the outside loops. So I join this across. And then when I turn it the other way, you have a really nice edge here because you have the tops of the single crochets lying really flat. It looks really pretty because this is going to be what you see on your cuff. If I'm keeping that same view, what it looks like is you see the underside of this seam here. And now I'm going to single crochet across this part here. So that other all green side of my half granny is now going to get a single crochet, little border all the way across. If we look at it from the top, we now have this single crochet here, and we have a single crochet here, matching colors. When I fold it up, it's gonna lay right over that same color. It's gonna look great. And now that I have this, it makes it a little bit easier to see where I'm gonna be doing my joining. And then again, we're gonna go back towards the center, doing that outside loop, slip stitch. Once we get to the inside, we need to clip our yarn. We have this beautifully bordered little half granny. I think this is a great place to get a little bit of motivation to keep going. Put it on, go ahead and fold this up. If we're going for like a sailor cap, we're there. Let's keep going and do the other 2. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a single crochet border in the bright blue. I was not expecting to like this color combination nearly as much as I do. It was supposed to be more of just demonstrate how the hat came together color combination, but it's turning out kind of beautifully. Okay, now that this has its border, I mean, I guess you could just like do all the borders individually, but I'm trying to minimize our ends here. So we need to go and find the matching color, and then remember that we're joining the wrong way. So I want the ridge to be up here. And so I'm gonna start my join, that outside loop on this one, and then the outside loop on this little corner here. And since I'm never coming back around here, I just wanted to close that little gap there. You know the drill, grabbing the outside loop, slip stitch along both sides of this guy, and then attach it to here. If you've enjoyed crocheting with me, there is a full pattern for this. I appreciate it if you buy the pattern and support my business so I can keep doing this. But even more importantly, there is a link in the pattern to a dedicated chat room within the Stitch Lab, which is my crochet community that you can access for free, and you can crochet not only with me but with other people that are making the same pattern, which I think is something that is absolutely incredible. It's taken me such a long time to create a space where this is possible. I get to see what you are working on, which is one of my favorite parts, and really break, you know, the one-way thing that really is like YouTube, and be able to actually get to do the thing together. And then of course, if you have any challenges or any issues, there's a community of people who are making the same thing who can answer those questions, cheer you on. We've come to the end here. Now we need to do this one last time. Again, single crochet border around this, and then face down, we're gonna join it backwards, and then we will be done. Let's get there. Make sure when you are starting to do your last border on this that it is face down so that you're grabbing from the right corner. Otherwise, you will be very hard pressed to be able to twist this back into the right shape. You'll probably have to like break your yarn and do it again. Once we do that last little join, our cap size of the hat is finally done. Now the last thing is, how do you identify where your cuff is to do that fold? And you're gonna see that you have this raised seam. This is gonna be your fold line. And we've actually, by doing the seam this way, given a little bit of extra length on all of these sides, which will make your cuff not quite as tight as the rest of the hat, which is what then allows it to fold over and sit so nicely without having it feel like it's squeezing your head or anything. And doing that different size of join on this last little round here, it is what lets that cuff be a little bit bigger and is part of the design. So thanks for your patience in doing that extra little detail, which gives us just a little bit better of a fit. Oh my gosh, this is so stinking cute. Oh, if this was the version that you're making of the cap, it is now complete and it looks absolutely incredible. You'll notice that you have these lovely little colored panels that continue from the top down to the fold over part of the hat. I'm gonna give you a little spin so you can see all sides here of how amazing this looks. Depending on kind of your outfit, you can choose between which side you want front, and it's gonna go with a lot of different things. So now that we have the cap, it's time to make the full beanie size. We're taking it back to when we just had 3 of our granny squares joined together. So the instructions are the same for both pieces up until you have done the full single crochet border around those 3 granny squares. We're going to lay out our granny squares that we want to join. They are going to be joined exactly the same way as the ones you've already joined together. The seams are going to be the same. This is a really easy added on step. The join that we're doing in this case is still our single crochet on one side and then slip stitch on the other. So I'm just gonna take my second granny square here. I'm gonna go through my single crochet and then slip stitch through to the granny square on the other side. In order to keep our lovely color spiral going, you'll want one side of each of the granny squares to match to the same color. This one is lined up on the other side with the navy, which means since I'm using up one of the sides of the mint green here, that means that the next granny square that I need to add is going to be the mint green, because there's only one other available side that has the matching color to join it to. Once I've gotten there, I'm going to chain one just to kind of end that bit. And next I need to join my mint green to the mint green here. Again, I'm slip stitching through that single crochet to the other side of the corresponding space on the granny square in the next row. And this extra row of granny squares ends up adding that slouchy, almost like stocking cap style to the hat. I swear I remember like my grandfather talking about beanies and basically kind of like making fun of the way we wear beanies and saying they look like stocking caps. And if you ever fancy like a funny little Google search or something, look up like what a stocking cap is. They used to sleep in them to, I don't know. It's like way before my time, but it's just funny because I always kind of, you know, when you're thinking beanies, we all know what a beanie is, but it's like, what's the difference between like that skull cap style, but we love a slouchy beanie, at least I do. Now that I finished the mint green, I'm gonna keep joining the mint green to this cobalt blue so that the cobalt blue can sit between these two colors. I almost got ahead of myself there and was just gonna move on to the cobalt blue, but make sure you're taking note of where everything joins together, because again, it is a little bit of a puzzle to just make sure you get all of those sides joined properly. Once two sides are joined together, you know that it's time for your next color. All of our seams are facing the other direction. You will know you have made it all the way around because you will have two sides connected to your main body. We still have all of our sides facing outwards. Now is where we're gonna start to get a little bit more interesting. We have one more square to continue our turn of our hat and that spirally pattern with the colors, which is like my favorite part. If I sit it up like here, what we're gonna want is see how this color goes down here. So then I'm gonna wanna keep that spiral by putting this next one here. But remember, we're now joining it the opposite way. We're joining it upside down, so I'm just gonna put it there. If I trace this spiral of that deep navy, it goes there. And then my lovely royal blue, spiral, spiral here. We're gonna start joining this together in this space, but instead of doing right sides together, we're gonna do kind of like a sitting on top of each other like a stack, so that this is actually gonna flip the opposite way of the granny square that it's joining to. But actually, the first thing we need to do is do our single crochet border all around the outside. Just gonna run around and do that single crochet. Now that we have our single crochet border, this is where we either could make or break our lovely spiral that we're going for. This blue, I'm continuing it down, which means it needs to go in this space here. So it really depends on if you put it off to the right or to the left, but just keep doing that. And then the way we're joining this together, again, this is going to be the right side with the same seam upward. We're joining it like they're just stacked on top of each other. And actually, since my yarn is right here, I'm gonna start on this side. That same slip stitch join. So I'll go through the single crochet on the main part and then just under the gap on the other side in that new square I'm joining, and just do a slip stitch all the way along. And then once I reach a corner, always good to check. I'm not attaching this side to this one because I need one side of the new granny square to be touching the same color to achieve that spiral. So don't forget that, because again, I do think the spiral aspect of this is just a really cool part of the pattern. Since one side of the royal blue is taken up, I know that the other side has to be its matching color. And again, make sure you feel like you're like stacking it on top for the join rather than doing like a right sides or wrong sides together. Sometimes the ease at which we can unravel hours of work in crochet does feel a touch like criminal because it's like it took forever and then you're just like, nope, I'm just gonna pull it and it will be gone. Okay, so just double checking, these two that I just attached should be facing a different direction than what is already in the hat. That looks great. Now to do the second side on this cobalt, joining it to this lovely midnight blue. And now we're gonna move to this second side. I only have one available side for the midnight blue and I haven't added it yet. You bet it's going right here, stacked right on top, and we keep going. Let me double check it's facing the right way. It looks like it is. I'd love to hear your thoughts with how we're joining things upside down or switching how the join is done on the last round to give it just that extra bit of shaping. I really appreciate those things in a design because those are the small details that I know when I'm wearing something is gonna bug me. So little things like that, I know that it makes the pattern slightly more complicated in that you have to pay attention to, you know, how you're joining things. But if I can have the shaping happen, and this is what's so incredible, is it just naturally does really form that shape. Like this is kind of like lovely experiment in beautiful 3D geometry, which, you know, you can say you're bad at math, but you're doing it. So you're right here with me. Okay, so I have done that one side and now I'm joining to the other side of this. And again, a great way to remember like which sides you should be joining. The thing with the single crochet border is getting attached to something. So whatever doesn't have a border and is sitting next to it is going to be attached to it because they do kind of all start to look the same. We've made it to that corner. We have everything connected except for this one last side of that mint green. And I'm so excited to get this fully joined because what we'll be able to see after this round is how that spiral is shaping up. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Okay, see how we're seeing the spiral around? We can turn this right side out really quick. Fold over these pieces and we can see our spiral happening. I'm just make it stand up for a moment so that we can see this spiral action. I look a little bit ridiculous, don't I? But it looks really, really cool. Like, see how this is going? Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. This is one of the reasons I prefer the beanie version of this is because you get this incredible spiral if you're doing just the 3 colors. We're going to quickly go over how to keep this spiral going with your cuff and where this placement needs to be because we see we have it going here. So you'd think it would be here, but it's not going to be because when we fold this up, there's this right above it. And so I think it's actually much more powerful to keep it there. So you're actually gonna offset this in the opposite direction of wherever it was before. Instead of continuing the spiral this way, this is actually gonna sit right next to it because when it folds up, it connects and then just creates this really lovely line. Okay, now you're ready to rejoin the main tutorial. As I'm finishing up my last joins of the partial granny squares, let's chat about some sizing modifications. Don't underestimate the amount of space that's added and taken away by the different kinds of seaming if you are finding things to be perhaps a little bit too snug or a little bit too loose. Blocking is always gonna help a little bit there. And if you're using a natural fiber, I always would recommend, unless it's like, if it feels really snug, like don't try to stretch it out. But if it feels just a little snug on your head and you're using a natural fiber, just the heat and moisture from your body, I know it sounds gross, will help it relax a little bit. So wear it around first, see how it feels. This colorway was approved by my husband, but I don't know, I'm kind of in love with it, so I think I'm just gonna steal it. And if you are having any like sizing issues, you get to this point and you're like, how could I modify the border and joining stitch to get a better fit? That is a great time to just like, you can literally just send me a DM in the Stitch Lab and be like, hey, here's the problem, or, you know, post in that community chat about making the hat. Someone else might have the same issue or they might have figured it out. Okay, look at the color. Oh my gosh. I am so smitten with this hat. It's looking so great. I've had so much fun crocheting with you. I've already said that I have a ton of granny square, puff granny squares lying around. So if you have any ideas for what you want to see a pattern to make out of puff granny squares next, just drop it in the comments. I'm sure you have wonderful ideas. I hope we can keep crocheting together either here on YouTube or in the Stitch Lab. We just finished it. It looks so good. I'm gonna puff it up just so you can see how that spiral works. It's fantastic. I hope you love making your beanie. If you do, make sure you find me on social media, Leigh's Stitch Lab on all channels, and tag me so I can see your fabulous creation. Or of course, if you want to share it in the Stitch Lab, that's a great place as well. Thank you so much for watching. Until I see you next time, happy crocheting.